What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Each Adventure channel. My name is Josh, and in today's video I'm going to be taking you through a full lap of the 2022 6 Hours of Glen Helen. So I've done this race before, but this time was different. This time was special. This time I did it in the Ironman class on a 2005 Yamaha TTR230, whereas before we did it as a team on a 1990 Kawasaki KDX200. But here we are, we're on the starting line for the Ironman class, and the class was so big that they actually started us on separate lines. So you can see I'm behind these guys, which had a little bit of trouble getting going, but was able to make my way around them and head out for this first turn. This first turn is the Talladega turn, and it's just this big sweeping turn that comes down with like this jump on the other side. All the races that I've done at Glen Helen, which is only 2, but both the 6 hour and the 10 hour last year had similar setup. So you come around this corner and then head up this hill and then back down another one. And like I said, these layouts are pretty similar, from at least from what I've seen on these endurance races. But the track layout does vary quite differently from race to race. And so this is actually one of the longer ones. You end up coming down this hill here. And this is where I was starting to get really nervous because, first of all, the TTR230 doesn't have a ton of power. It'll climb just about anything if it has traction. But big, long, soft, steep hills is where you're really pushing the limits of this bike. And with my experience at the 10 hour last year, I had a really hard time with the Mount St. Helens hill, which you're going to see coming up here in just a second. And I didn't make the hill 2 or 3 times on the KDX200, which was a more powerful bike, but it was just, I was struggling at night. I was struggling to find traction, couldn't really see. It got pretty rough there for a while. So yeah, so this whole layout here, it's very similar to how they ran the 10, just with a couple different sections. So you can see where that flag is. That's the Mount St. Helens hill. So you kind of have to make your way through this little back canyon. And this part was really interesting because this dirt was really soft. It was like soft, silty sand, and it was actually kind of difficult to get through here on the 230, just because you'd lose so much traction. You can see it's not too bad here, but if you look at right there on the left, like that's just, those aren't hard ruts. Those are really, really soft sand ruts. So here, this is almost identical to how it was at the 10 hour last year, and the reason why this is so hard is you come up this hill and then there's 2 drops. There's this one, which you can see some people with nice suspension can jump down that, and then there's this one as well, and then you have this hairpin and then a straight uphill shot. And I was so worried about the TTR, and as soon as I hit here, I had to just twist the throttle as far as it would go and just say a prayer, because you can see like these are the smaller bikes passing me right now. So the minis started right after Ironman class, and they're already catching up to me and flying up this hill. See, this guy didn't make it, and I'm just barely making it, just barely. Had it been any looser than that, I don't think we would have made it up that hill, and it probably would have been a relatively short race for me. That was the thing I was worried the most about. But anyway, so once you get up that hill, these ridge lines are actually pretty fun. It's kind of nice too. It's a little bit breezy up there. It's more like hard packed dirt with like silty sand on top, which is kind of what I'm used to, like riding fire roads and some of the other non-technical trails in the area. They're all very similar terrain to this, so feel right at home right up on these ridge lines. But yeah, this section right here is actually very similar to how they ran the 6 hour last year. So we're going to stay on these ridge lines for a little bit, and then coming up in about a minute there is a cutoff to the left that leads to some really cool single track. So you can see I'm getting passed here by the minis. So my goal with this race, it was not to be competitive. I mean, I'm on a TTR230. I'm not really the best rider, but the whole purpose of doing this race was to prove to myself that, I could do an Ironman. I could at least hang in the race to finish the whole 6 hours. which is no easy feat. It's very, very difficult. And just a spoiler alert, I made it about 5.5 hours. There's going to be another video talking about the rest of the race, but I had a couple pretty good crashes, and the bike wasn't in the best shape after those, and I knew if I went out one more time, I probably would have gotten hurt. And so I cut out about a half hour early. So, but I will be back. I will be doing this again. So we're gonna make the full 6 hours. Maybe not on the TTR, but so you can see here, yeah, there's a Mini going right in front of me. But you cut off on this left-hand turn, and then you're on this cool, like flowy, like ridgeline single track, which is pretty fun. There's a section with like a couple little whoops, but the overall flow of this section, I actually really enjoy it. So yeah, right here there's some whoops which aren't super great on the 230 suspension. And if you're wondering about the 230, like I said, I'm going to have kind of a build series of what I did to get it ready for this, because I had to do some major repairs and fixing a stripped countershaft spline. So I had to pull the whole, tear the whole engine apart and basically rebuild it. But in the process of this, I fixed bunch of things that were broken on it, and I stiffened up the suspension, and that actually helped quite a bit in these whoops and bumps and stuff, because if you're familiar with the TTR230 suspension, the front end is really, really soft, and it kind of seesaws up and down as you're riding, and it really makes it feel pretty unstable when you start getting up to higher speeds. So this section here was also in the 6 hour last year. This is pretty fun. So you come around this corner, and then you head down into like another little single track canyon. Not that corner, this one coming up. But what a perfect day. I mean, look at the clouds. We got the sun shining through the clouds. Just an overall great day for this race. So this is kind of what happens on this course, and this is one of the big downsides of this race, is that everybody is on the same course at the same time, and so you have very inexperienced riders riding with very experienced riders, and you get to these sections where it narrows down into these single tracks, and it just creates a huge bottleneck. Now for me, like I said, I entered the race like not really caring about position. Like I just cared about doing the race, finishing the race, proving to myself that I can do hard things like this. So I don't really care like when it comes to these. Like I don't mind getting backed up into these lines of people. It does hurt the lap times a little bit, but for the most part, like I don't really mind. But there are people there that are there to race competitively, and when you're the guy in front of these guys kind of slowing everybody down, and they're yelling a little bit, it does get pretty intimidating. I know they probably have the best of intentions, but overall, I think if I had to choose one thing that I didn't like about this race, is it, being kind of the lead guy and blocking everybody in situations like this. And so you can see, like, there are some other people that will take off and kind of go around these bottlenecks. This guy. Poor guy. I did something similar actually on one of the other laps too, so I feel him here. So one thing that is super cool though is that if you get stuck like this, you're not typically stuck for long. There are, people that are working the race that are there to help as things go on. So you can see this guy with a vest. He's going to help get this guy unstuck and just kind of help unblock everybody, and he's going to hop on the bike and just kind of ride it down to an open area side saddle. So that's freaking awesome. But yeah, you kind of go through these bushes here, which is pretty cool. Thanks, guy. And for some reason, like I'm normally like really good here in terrain like this, and I was struggling with this, and actually it really hurt me later on, because there's another section that's much longer than this in this race, which you'll see coming up, and out of everything in the race, like those are the parts that took the most out of me. So once you get out of that single track section, you head up this hill, and this is where the course changed a bit from the 6 hour. We head up, instead of going over there to the right, we head up here, and it was kind of an interesting climb because that part we just went through got really sandy, and it was kind of hard to like make that turn and carry the momentum on the TTR through the sand. So it was another kind of interesting area on the course. But here we are, we're back up on the ridge lines, and like I said, I mean, just check out the view from up here. It's just awesome, like with the clouds and everything. I ride in this area quite a bit, in the Cajon Passes, kind of at the bottom. And I just love riding up here because of the views. But you can see this downhill here, pretty nice downhill. And then there's two of them. There's a downhill here, and then we kind of head up onto this second part of the ridge. And for the most part, like, I'm feeling pretty good here. So far, like, the biggest thing I was worried about was that Mount St. Helens hill. And so, like, you know, for the first lap, making it, not crashing, you know, making through the single track, feeling pretty good. And then we start hitting this downhill section, and you know, for me, like, I'm still pretty timid about hitting these downhills with speed, especially on a bike like the TTR that doesn't have the greatest of suspension. But overall, it wasn't too bad. And then we make our way into kind of this cool little section of track or trail here between these bushes. This is another area of the track too that got really sandy, and that plays a little bit of a role in the overall story of the race, but we can talk about that later. One of the cool things about this particular lap was, since the Ironman people started last and the expert and all the other groups went before, and then basically the minis had passed me at this point, for this whole lap I kind of had the whole thing to myself, so it was really nice. I could kind of just go at a really easy pace, like not really worry too much about anybody else, and it was great. I wish the whole race could have been more like this lap. But you can see, yeah, so now we're on kind of like the backside of Glen Helen Regional Park. So you go through this pavement section, and this is about the longest pavement section of the races that I've done here. On some of the previous races, we kind of come up out of that section and just do like this little part here. But you can see quite a big long section of pavement. It's a little sketchy because it's like asphalt with this, you know, really loose, rocky dirt on top. But overall, since it was pretty straight like this, it wasn't too bad. And then we start heading up onto the other side of the ridges here at Glen Helen. So there's kind of like two ridge lines, and this heads up into the second section. So in the other races that I've done, we actually came down this way. So this is kind of like my first time riding it in this opposite direction. And this section was really interesting because it's another section that got really sandy, especially these hills. Like this one here, you can see that sand there. And then same thing like with this section here. So it was kind of hard, like, to carry any momentum through there. You can see I'm kind of struggling for power there a little bit. I think my gear was a little bit too high. But yeah, that section was pretty interesting. And then we kind of head up the hill to get onto the top of the ridgeline. And here's more just, you know, typical ridgeline cruising. Really nice up here. Like, even later on in the race, like, these ridgelines, at least I felt, didn't get too messed up or anything like that. It was just kind of getting up here that was the hard part. But, you know, there wasn't usually too many people up here. You didn't really have to worry about, you know, people flying by you, although I'm sure it happened. But at least for me, you know, like I said, I feel the most comfortable out of all the spots on the racetrack. I feel the most comfortable up here. But at the 24-hour race last year, they added a new single track section into the race, and they added a new single track section into this race as well. And so I was told it was not the same single track section, it was a different one. But regardless, I want to say that it's probably the most challenging obstacle on this course. So you're going to see we're going to come down this ridge here, and you can kind of see it there off to the right. But we're going to come around here, and then they're going to throw us down into this canyon. So you can see the tracks blocked off, and we head into this super legit like single track section. And this single track, although fun, is very intimidating when you have a line of people behind you. And it's just steep enough to where like you don't really want to get up onto the pegs, because the second your front wheel deflects off something, you're gonna crash. Because it's steep enough to where like you can't really recover if your feet comes off the pegs. It's very it's very difficult. And there's like these little drops, so you can see there's one there, and you know, as we kind of make our way down, there's another one coming up. And so it's one of those things where like it's just steep enough to where makes it intimidating. It's just technical enough to where, you know, if you get up onto the pegs and make a mistake, it's going to be a lot harder to recover from that mistake. Even though the riding itself would be way easier to be up on the pegs through this, because it's way less exhausting. So you can see here, here's another drop here. And here. And so it's a pretty long section to be in a race like this. And so you can see I dug the front tire into the corner there, so it kind of got stuck. Gotta watch out for that branch. But yeah, I definitely was not expecting something like this in this race. You know, there's single track sections in this race, but usually they're not this long. And this did cause, you know, quite a few bottlenecks throughout the day. But luckily we're almost done here. Last couple turns, and we head out back onto the track again. Definitely the most exhausting section of the course for sure, because I felt like I was fighting with the bike more, you know, trying to prevent myself from crashing, than I was actually riding it. And you know, I think part of that just comes to skill, and part of that comes with, you know, just how difficult that section was to maneuver. And you know, my focus was on not crashing, but I think that came at the expense of, you know, using way more energy than I needed to get through that section, which is something I really need to work on, because aside from that section, like throughout the whole race, I've actually felt really good compared to the 6 and the 10 last year. You know, I hardly cramped up, like I wasn't nearly as fatigued. Arm pump was minimal. Like I felt really good through most of the day. And it was sections like that that just zapped the rest of my energy, and the few crashes that I had that just made it very difficult to finish it up. So this next part here is a cool little single track that goes through like this watery creek thing. And in the other races we came through this in the opposite direction, so it was a little interesting going through this in this direction, because it's up. You can't really tell with the camera, but it's uphill, so you're fighting for traction a little bit more versus just kind of cruising down it, which made it actually pretty interesting. I never really struggled in that section before, and you know, it was actually one of the harder things to get through on this one, because you know, your tire would hit like a wet rock or something and just kind of spin you out the other way, and you just kind of have to fight for traction to keep your momentum going, whereas going downhill, you kind of had the momentum on your side. So in right here, you're going to discover the other thing that really made this race difficult, and that is the fact that I wear glasses, and when I start to heat up, and especially if it's kind of cool outside, the glasses fog up like really, really bad. So the goggles themselves, I think, have some kind of anti-fog stuff on them, but the glasses inside the goggles, they fog up, and it just makes it so hard to see. I had to stop like this multiple times to clear off like the the fog on my glasses because I couldn't see anything. So definitely, you know, I've worn contacts before, like on rides like this, but with all the dirt and stuff, it comes with a trade-off. Like I either can't see with the glasses because they're fogged up, or I can't see because my eyes are so dry because they're full of all kinds of dirt and other crap, and making the contacts, you know, not stick right, and then I can't see. So definitely want to look into some laser eye surgery or something, because if I'm going to be doing stuff like this, I think vision is probably one of the most important things that you could have, and it's getting to the point where it's frustrating. And you know, I know some guys that'll just not wear goggles and that's not a good idea. I've been hit in the face with a rock too many times to know that that's not a good idea. So this section here is another pretty fun section that's been in the other races that I've done here as well. I kind of like running it in this direction because it's a little more downhill, so it flows a little bit better. I think at the 10 last year they ran it in the other direction, and it wasn't quite as fun, and it was really dusty. So going this direction has a much better flow to it. So you can see it kind of opens up here, and just kind of like a normal trail, and then the rest of this race is pretty much run on the track side. So we start out over here in the hills, and then we head back over to the tracks, so like the regular motocross tracks and the flat tracks like the trophy truck tracks and things like that. So definitely terrain's a bit different, but it's one of the things that makes this race so fun, is there's so much variety of terrain. So you can see here, like, yeah, this is like a little sand road, and this was like a bunch of sand whoops, and later on in the race, like, those sand whoops got really deep, so you're like bouncing off the front, you know, the front and rear, like just bouncing through those with no control. But it's pretty interesting, and definitely interesting on the TTR. So you can here's some more, a little bit of a sandy section. And it's so interesting how they changed this section of the course from race to race too. I remember it was in both the 6 and the 10 hour last year, but with slightly different configurations, and this race was no different. So you kind of head back into this little canyon and then come up the backside of these hills down onto the main track. And you know, one of the things I was worried about the most with this race was the Mount St. Helens hill. But this next section here actually took me by surprise. So you come down this hill, it's a little bit of a jump here that I just kind of roll, and you have this turn with this pretty big hill, and I didn't realize how big this hill was, but this took a lot to get the TTR up it. Barely making it, just barely. And to be honest, like, this one actually caused me more struggles than the Mount St. Helens hill, because that hill throughout the day got more and more worn out, and so it was more difficult to keep traction, especially up towards the top. So I thought it was interesting, because the thing I was worried about the most is actually the thing I didn't struggle with as much. But this is another interesting downhill too, so it's a lot steeper than it looks on camera, and then there's this sharp lefts headed, you know, up onto this section at the base of the hill here. And so after we come down this hill, we head out into the more flat section of Glen Helen. So it's where all the flat tracks are and the trophy truck tracks. And you can see, I mean, we're already 24 minutes into this video, and there's still quite a bit of race left. So I believe they said the course was like 10 miles or something like that, and at the 6 hour last year, I believe it was slightly shorter. So throughout most of this race, I was running about 30-minute lap times or so, which is pretty long. I think at the 6 hour, I was doing around 25, and at the 10 last year, some of my best lap times were around 20. So those courses were quite a bit shorter. So you can see now we're on, you know, something that resembles a little bit more of a motocross track. We have, you know, some hairpin turns and some small little jumps and stuff here that I'm not jumping. So one of the nice things about the way that they laid out this course and how the courses were laid out in the previous races that I've done is that it seems that all the technical and harder stuff is towards the beginning of the course, and at the end of the course it's a little bit more flat. There's a little bit more chances to kind of rest and you know, get your body ready for the next lap, I guess you could say. Because you can see that this is it's pretty flat, pretty mellow. You can go pretty fast through here, but I'm just kind of cruising, you know, taking it easy. This is the first lap too, so just kind of getting my feel for it. But then there's guys like that guy just flying past me. So as you could probably tell by this point in the course, a lot of the fast guys that started first are starting to catch up with me, so they're already lapping me on my first lap here. It was also nice over here too. You can tell that the dirt's pretty wet, so they did a pretty good job of keeping the dust down, especially over here. And it did help too that there was a little bit of rain the night before. Not as much as, you know, I think they were hoping that they would get, because it was still a little dusty and sandy up on the ridges. But at least as far as this track section down here, it did a really good job of keeping the dust down. And just looking at this footage again, I mean, I still can't believe what a perfect day for riding and racing this was. You can see it's like partly cloudy. It wasn't too hot. It wasn't too cold. Just, you couldn't have asked for like a better day. You can see the clouds in the background, nice and clear. Pretty awesome.
God damn it.
So you can see right here, struggling a little bit. It's a little bit more rocky and sandy on this back section. And one of the things that's been in the last few races, we're going to get to it in just a second, is this long, kind of like a sand pit. And it's really not too bad. As long as you keep your speed through a lot of this stuff, it doesn't seem to take as much out of you as it could if you were going slower. You know, that's kind of the trick to riding in sand in general. And I'm still trying to find like my perfect balance of like how good I feel riding through sand, because it's still a little sketchy for me. But I think overall, you know, as long as you keep a relatively decent pace and keep looking forward, it's not too bad. So here we go. So so I already know, since I've been through it before. So you can see it's very deep, like cross-rutted sand, and so you just gotta get up on the pegs and just power through this stuff. So not too bad at all, though. Alright, so now we're going to start heading back over towards the main area of Glen Helen. So we're going to go through these gates. Watch this guy just blow past me like I'm standing still. And then past this little trailer here. And then head back towards the base of the hills. And this is kind of another section too. This section gets really, really rocky. And so it's another one where you just kind of have to up on the pegs, power through, and hope you don't get deflected off some of these rocks. Next section up here is pretty fun too. This one was also in the 10-hour last year, I believe. And it could have even been in the 6. I don't know, the races are starting to run together in my mind. So looking back, just like, wait, which race was that again? But it's pretty cool. There's like some smallish, I guess they're not small, they're actually pretty big jumps. But it's just fun, kind of fun to go through this section. There's a little hairpin here.
Oh, that's slippery.
And for the most part, like for being racing for 30 minutes now, like I was feeling really good at this point. On previous races, the first lap was kind of like a hit or miss. You know, I would have already been kind of cramped, a little bit nervous, you know, a little fatigued already.
I don't know why.
This part does give me a problem though. It's like deep sand with like these big turns in there. If you find a rut, it's okay, but sometimes it's hard to find. Alright, so now we're back. Jesus. Now we're back to the main part of the track. Getting a little air, not as much as that guy that just passed me, but having some fun with it. And I know we're close to the end of the lap, so starting to feel a little good. Just wanting to get this one finished. You start making like these mental markers in your head of like where you're at on the track and like how much longer that you need to go. And so like in my mind, I kind of split it up in sections and then focus on doing one section at a time. And so, you know, when I get to this point, it's just like, okay, like it's gonna be more track oriented type stuff. You know, just gotta kind of push through and adjust the riding style a little bit, because it is really sandy through here. I never realized how sandy it was. But you can see we got the signature Glen Helen tunnel coming up. And so this was in the 10 last year, this kind of weird corkscrew turn thing. So you come down here, try to find a rut to dig into, which I did okay there. And head into the tunnel. Don't get your wheel caught up on the side. And make your way through the finish line here. And once you pass through this section, I did like how they took the little block out. That was kind of weird, so I hope that's something they continue to do. But as you can see now, we are back in the pit area. So this is the kind of the backside of the first two pit rows. A lot of established teams and stuff kind of set up over here, like really big trailers, really big setups. But what I found is kind of the farther you go out, the more sparse and kind of individual it becomes. But we were set up on the other side. I'm probably going a little fast through the pit row here. I believe the speed limit's like 15 miles an hour. Make our way here. This side is dirt. We had a nice spot right up here on the right hand side. And so there we go. That is one full lap of the 2022 6 Hours of Glen Helen. Lap time looks like it was about 33 minutes for this first one, and then I think on the second, third laps it dropped down to about 30. So overall, not too bad. Like I said, there will be another video talking about the race in its entirety. So if you liked what you saw here, definitely subscribe so you can check that out later.
Huh? No, I'm good. I'm just, my goggles are fogging up.
This guy was kind enough to let me use this rag to wipe off my goggles real quick.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
But that's it, guys. That's all I got for this one. So, as always, if you like this video, please leave a like down below. If you're new here, please subscribe. We'd like to do adventures and dirt bike rides and stuff like this on a weekly basis, and I would love to have you along for the ride. So until next time, guys, be sure to have fun, take care, and ride safe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, be sure to get out there and have adventures of your own, and I will see you guys next time. Later!
Thanks for watching the video. If you liked what you saw, please let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button. If you are new here, please subscribe to see more adventures just like this one. For information about my riding gear or the various ways you can help support the channel, please check out the links below or head over to www.eachadventure.com. I'll see you in the next one.